What's going on, you guys? I think I spat a little bit there. What's going on, you guys? Zach here from PremiumBeat.com. Today, we're gonna be talking about dealing with client feedback. What's the best way to do it? I just finished a project where I got a ton of feedback on it. So I'm gonna talk about my creative process of going through that. And these are my 5 tips on how to get through client feedback, because sometimes it can be an overwhelming struggle. So what are some good ways to get through it? Oh, it sounds like I just smoked like 10 cigarettes. So whether you're working on a massive project, or maybe it's something a little bit more simple, maybe it's something that you show to your friends, or maybe it's for a big company. These are some great ways to go through a project without being overwhelmed and stressed that you've either destroyed your project, that it's like a big list and how you're gonna overcome it, and how to deal with working with clients. So before I get into today's tutorial, I want to show you guys this audio setup that I did, which I think will be really cool. Here, one second. I'm just gonna open up my camera here. I'm really proud of this because essentially, take a look at it. Take a look. So I have a Rode mic, and then I've got it on a Magic Arm, and then it's literally like probably about 30 centimeters from my face. Centimeters is a Canadian thing. With that aside, let's get into my tips right now. Okay, so my first tip that I'd have to suggest is to do non-destructive editing. So that means don't go into your project and start trimming away at your original timeline. Luckily with Premiere and other editing softwares now, they do autosave, so worst comes to worst, you could open up an older autosave, but sometimes that can be a little bit tricky figuring out the time that you made those adjustments. So what I would recommend is actually duplicating your sequence, making a second one. So let's say you just got a set of revisions in. I would make like, if you have a project name like My Project 1, I would label My Project version 2, and then have that in my sequence folder so I know version 2 is the one with feedback. You can even put like a little dash and then like with feedback V1, and then every time you get new feedback, you create a new sequence. That way you have organized versions of what edits you do, because sometimes clients will come back and be like, look, you know what, I liked what you had in version 2. Remember like in September when you gave me that edit? Could we bring this back? It happens, it sucks, but it totally happens. Another thing that sometimes will happen is you'll do a really good edit that you really like, that'll get pushed aside, and then you'll have to go back into the project to maybe make, let's say, like a 30-second version of the video, or something a little bit shorter, or something a little bit longer, but you don't have those shots in one of your timelines. Well, luckily, if you saved one of these older sequences, you can just open that up, find the shots from the original edit that you did, and then sprinkle it into your new one. So 9 times out of 10, your client should be sending you feedback with time code in it. So let's say there is a edit that they want changed. They would say, okay, go to 004.8, you go to the time code that they suggested, and then you're able to make the incision. You'll know the exact shot. So basically what I would say, let's say if you're working with a client, say give me the time code and the shot that you want fixed, and possibly the line, so that like communication is 100% clear. It's easy to get off track when it comes to edits, especially once you do more and more revisions. So to have time code in your notes is very, very crucial. Within your sequence, do not ripple delete. So basically if you get a feedback, they're like trim this shot out, don't trim that shot out and ripple it, like put them together until you've gone through all the feedback. The reason why you don't want to do that is as soon as you make a change within your timeline, all of the notes that you have from the client are now abolished because it's completely different. The time code is now shifted, your clips have all shifted to one side. So let's say what originally was make this time code at 4 minutes 50 seconds has now shifted because your whole timeline's changed because you deleted one clip. So make sure whenever you're making any of these changes, do not ripple delete any of the sequences or trim down the sequence until you've gone through all your notes and feedback. In case you have started to ripple the timeline, changing the timeline while still going through notes and feedback, which I've totally done in the past before, what I'll do is I'll actually open up the edit that they're referencing just to make sure, and you should do this regardless, is open up the edit that they're referencing in a separate screen. So you have on your one screen the edit that you're working on, and then on the other screen the one that they're referencing, just to make sure that it's perfect. And sometimes you might open up the wrong project, which again is something that happens. So if you have the edit that they're referencing, let's say it's online, look at that and make sure it's the same shot, same time code, so that whenever you're making your adjustments, you're not editing a different project or possibly editing at the wrong time code. My 4th tip for client feedback would be take everything with a grain of salt. Let's say you're working with a client, maybe this is the first time you've worked with a client. Feedback sometimes can be harsh and you basically have to have thick skin for some of it. Let's say you really like an edit and you're so proud of it. but the client doesn't. It doesn't serve the story that they want. Remember that, and it kind of hurts when they say, oh, I don't like this shot, get rid of it. And it kind of hurts. The big thing to realize is that they understand their brand and marketing better than you do. This is something that they represent, not yourself. You're just a hired gun. And so maybe if you're representing your own brand, you can have a bit of feedback in that. Or let's say maybe if you're representing the brand too, have a little bit of feedback. And the big thing is sometimes if they don't know video editing or they don't know storytelling, they'll come back to you and be like, you know what, that edit, that really cool edit that you did, put that back in, we really liked it. That's where having a duplicate of your original timeline comes in really handy so that you didn't destructively just delete that and now it doesn't exist. Because sometimes the big thing is you're the filmmaker, the client isn't, so you understand story structure a little bit better. Be open to options, but stand your ground if the edit doesn't work. So if let's say they give you a bit of feedback and it's like the most ridiculous thing, I would say apply the change just to show them that it doesn't work and then explain to them why you feel like it's not gonna fit the whole story. If you haven't got a bit of a good relationship with your client, have that communication, have that dialogue. Sometimes that can progress a story into a much better spot. If you don't really have a good dialogue with your client, or possibly this is just a paying gig, then just move forward with it and keep going. My biggest tip of advice would be do all of your audio last. So if you're working on a project and you have, let's say, music, sound effects, all that stuff, make sure you leave that as a last thing to do, because that is one of the things that can go out of sync really quickly. So let's say you're doing an edit, you move some of the video timeline. Sometimes the audio doesn't trail with it, sometimes the sound effects, so that stuff can go out of sync really easily. So if you can, put temp music in, but don't go crazy on the music, don't go crazy on the sound design, because chances are while you're still going through feedback, it's going to be moving around quite a bit. So I would say just have a very simple music track, very simple sound design if need be, and then express to the client that that is going to be the final touches that you apply to your video. Sometimes the notes can be very overwhelming, and especially if you're working for a new client, you've got like a list of thousands, just take them like chunk at a time. And sometimes when I get like 100 notes on a video and there's a ton of time code, I just don't even feel motivated to get into it because there's just so much going on. But take it at little chunks, do a little chunk every hour and just slowly chip away at them, and eventually you'll get through all those notes. And at the end of the day, it's for the better. Their feedback will probably represent them better. Maybe it will show the edit a bit of a new perspective. Big thing is too, sometimes when you look at an edit for hours and days on end, your perspective gets a little skewed. So it's hard to disassociate yourself within the original edit. So a lot of the time, a client's feedback when they have fresh eyes into it can show the video a new perspective, a new look at it. So take that feedback, chip away at it, and don't be afraid to step right in and start working on it, because eventually those notes will get smaller and smaller and the edit will get easier and easier. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this tutorial and want to take a look at more, I highly recommend taking a look at the PremiumBeat YouTube page. There's a lot of really solid content on there. If you guys want to follow my life a little bit more, like the videos that I do, I have a YouTube page. You can check it out in my bio below. You guys can also follow me on the Instagrams, at Zach Ramel. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this tutorial, I'll answer them right there. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and keep making some great stuff, guys.